Welcome back to the Black and Raw podcast. I'm your host, Tina Tondo Ivanzabaya. I ain't gonna repeat that. Here's a show that's creating the dialogue and the space for black men to be their most authentic selves. Now, my guest today is Chinazom, and he comes onto the podcast today to talk about his book, Real Talk, where he takes a fictional set of characters and gets them to discuss about mental health after the pandemic. And I think you guys are really going to enjoy this conversation that I have with him. We talk about his book, Real Talk. We talk about how he adjusted moving from the UK to the US to start a family, but also to start a new job. And, that comes with a lot of risk and a lot of challenges, but we discuss all of that. We discuss in terms of being a parent in the COVID pandemic, how that was for him, the ups, the downs, and we really just have an interesting discussion about parenthood and parenting in a society such as the US. And so I hope you guys really enjoy this episode. Please tell me what you think about it in the comment section below. And yeah, here is my conversation with Chinazom. So, Chinazom, welcome to the Black and Raw podcast. It's really good to have you on.
Thank you so much, Tina. Yeah, I'm glad to be on here today to have this conversation with you.
No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. No, so yeah, when I saw what you do in terms of about mental health and coaching, and the book you got called Real Talk, I just thought, yeah, perfectly to have you on the podcast.
No, I was saying it to you earlier. I thought the stars aligned because the first talk I did on Real Talk was actually talking about Black men's mental health. So when it came through, I was like, I'm really excited to talk about this and get underneath the bonnet, as they say.
Yeah, definitely. So I read sort of a bit about your bio before, but I really wanted just to find out from you in terms of that. They said that you moved from the UK to the US and that you really wanted sort of a career change in your life. And so I guess just what made you want to pivot your career to do what you're doing now?
That's a great question. So my career was great. It was giving me financial security, which growing up in the UK, where my mom, we came over from Nigeria. Financial security was a big thing. As I'd been doing, I was coming up to 20 years, and I was like, there's a bit more to life that I wanted out of this. And then I had this kind of revelation where I didn't have a family then, and I was like, I didn't really like my job. I knew I didn't like my job, and I was like, I don't want to have kids and say to myself when I look in the mirror, oh, I just went to work because of my kids. I wanted to put food on the table, because I knew that would be a lie. So I was like, all right, what am I really passionate about? What would kind of make me feel like, okay, I'm doing something that I really care about? So I stumbled onto performance psychology, and I started working with athletes, helping them. And then we did that transition. So while I was in the UK, it was quite tough to get paid for the job I was doing. That convinced me, let's try over in the US, where there's a bit more opportunity, and there's more chances that people will want to pay for the services. So we decided to move over 2019, and yeah, I'm quite glad we made that decision. We now have 2 kids, so my wife was pregnant at the time. We survived the pandemic, and also while surviving the pandemic, I was able to adapt and change to not just work with athletes, but working with everyone. So I'm now a high performance leadership coach.
Okay. And what does a high performance leadership coach look like? Like what is that, if you can tell me?
So I'm going to give an example. While I was during the pandemic, I was working with leaders in different areas. I was working with people in tech companies. I was working with doctors. I was working with people in banking. So all the different leaders, if you're in a job where you're responsible for delivering, as the pandemic happened, all of a sudden everyone kind of realized you can't perform if your well-being, if your mental fitness is not taken care of. And just to allow people had to keep pivoting and changing and adapting, because there was remote working, there was all the different uncertainties and having to manage a team. So high performance for me, leadership coaching, is kind of showing you what do you need to take care of yourself first, so that you can show up and help take care of other people and lead the way you want to lead.
Yeah, there's always that phrase, which is like, you can't pour out of an empty cup. And, I think it is really important that people, fix yourself isn't the word, but like get yourself in the best space possible to then pour out into others, and then to just navigate your day, isn't it really?
Yeah, I love that phrase. You can't pour out of an empty cup. I have to remember that one, because my one is also, like when you're on the plane and they tell you have to put your own oxygen mask on first before you
Mm,
go and start helping others. So that's the other one I love, in that you can't go and start leading other people if you haven't taken care of yourself first. It's just not gonna. There's nothing for you to pour out. Yeah. So,
yeah,
but,
definitely. Yeah, I like that one as well. Yeah, I'm actually going on a plane on Friday. I'm going to Hawaii, fortunately.
oh, nice, nice.
So I'll be making sure to
Ah,
put my own oxygen. Actually, hopefully I don't need to.
yeah. Whenever I listen to that, I'm like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but I hope I never have to do it ever. Hawaii, that's good. That's nice. How long is the flight?
Oh, I think we have so many stopovers. I think we go to like Vancouver, then Calgary, then from Calgary to Hawaii.
Okay.
So I think it's going to be a long flight. It's going to be a long flight, but I'm looking forward to it. To be fair, I kind of like flying. Um, Maybe not sitting in economy class because I'm quite tall, so my legs don't get much space. But like, I love the whole experience of flying. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think it's going to be worth it once you get there. So I'm sure you're going to have a great holiday.
yeah, definitely. And so as you said, you are a performance coach and that you're working with leaders and you're working with men. And I'm sure you work with women as well.
Yeah.
But I would really like to know maybe what are some of your favorite stories in terms of when working with people, in terms of when coaching people.
My favorite stories. I'm going to pull from one during the pandemic where just watching this person having to lead their team during the pandemic, where it's like the rule book got ripped up and just thrown out the window. And this person just kept coming up with creative ideas, how to support their team, how to get them to work through it. And it just seemed like there was just something happening again and again and again. And somehow it shows me that when somebody really cares about what they're doing and when they're in the right place, stuff that to you looking at the outside would think, oh my God, how are they doing that? For them, when they really care, and it's like the energy is coming from inside, they can find ways to just keep pushing and keep pushing through that. So just watching how that person really supported their team was an eye opener for me, but also helping them, because then something happened during that process where they were about to get promoted,
Mm,
and watching as the wheels started to come off, where all of a sudden this person's going for promotion, you think, oh my God, this thing you've worked all your life for, then this, they call it imposter syndrome or whatever, started rearing its ugly head. And it turns out the person was like, oh my God, they felt like they were fraud and they didn't deserve the position. And they also had what they thought was a disability, which actually explained to me why they had I call it their superpower, because it was why they were able to think and see things differently. So what was really, I really loved that period, was being able to just kind of hold a mirror to this person and say, see what you've done just the
mm.
6 months I've been working with you. So this is why you're going to get promoted. And watching that person actually go for the interviews and get the promotion was great, because it was shocking what the brain can do to you, where it can just all of a sudden just show you your flaws and you
Mm.
forget to see all the amazing things that you've done. So that's that one really sticks with me, working with that person to see how they were able to achieve that, and also help to show them that this is how good you really are.
Yeah, definitely. You like it's amazing that sort of they were able to overcome that imposter syndrome and with you supporting them, and that they realize that actually, I've got this because everything that you've been saying in terms of that, what they're doing through COVID, coming up with creative solutions, making sure that their team is well supported, like that's an immense thing to do when you don't have a pandemic. Never mind then when you're all
Uh,
locked at home and you have to do it through Zooms and
uh,
everything. So they were probably very well equipped for that job anyway, but
yeah.
the brain sort of tries and tricks you and makes you think, oh wait, no, you're not right for this job, or like you
Mm,
said, the imposter syndrome was coming through. So that's a great story, to be fair, which is really nice to hear.
thank you. Yeah, no, it's one that definitely still sticks with me, and always, yeah, always kind of fills me with energy, and okay, I definitely have to keep doing this coaching thing, just because it would have been quite sad if this person didn't take up that role which they'd worked for all their life, and which they were the best suited person for that role.
Yeah. Can you tell me in terms of when it comes to coaching people, not necessarily what's the secret sauce, but what approach do you find helps people the most?
What helps people the most? I mean, the big part for me is in the beginning, making sure that there's trust, because it's like there's no magic trick that I do in coaching. Like the person's going to do all the work, but they have to trust that I'm there to get the best for them. And because we have to go, I call it going below the surface, because sometimes people will be saying, they'll be telling you a story, but it's like, but that's not the thing that's driving you. That's not the underlying emotion. So they have to be willing to trust me and open up. And then in the beginning, I have to set an agreement in the, this is going to take, it's going to take work. So you have to be willing to commit, to be vulnerable, to be open, and to also like whatever we share in the sessions, go out and put it into practice, because it's like, it's a new behavior you're trying to learn. So that takes effort. So you have to be willing to practice, fall down, get back up, practice again until the thing becomes muscle memory. And then, yeah, then it starts to come out in your life.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And how do you build trust with people that you've just met for the first time? You know, that can be sort of quite daunting for people. I'm
Yeah.
sure as a coach, you've probably gotten used to it, but how do you gain trust?
It's actually quite funny because I was talking with the wife of one of somebody who I worked with back in the UK, and she kind of said that I have an aura, which I can never put my finger on. But the way I look at it is when I start the coaching session, I always try to see the light inside of that person. So I try to see the person already at that higher place that they want to achieve. And then I just set the intention that I'm here to make sure that you get to that place and you get the best. And that's why I try to, hopefully, I never thought it would come across in Zoom, but I've had to like do loads of coaching sessions where I just met people through a computer, and somehow it does come across in that, as long as I set that intention and I show up in the right way in those first meetings, I'm able to kind of build that trust.
Yeah, I can already see that sort of as we're talking. Even before, it was just quite chill, quite a lot of laughs. And I can see how sort of people that you're coaching can easily get that and gain that trust as well.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you picked that up as well. That's what I've been working on.
No, that's good. That's good. I wanted to find out from you as well. So, we mentioned that, you know, you moved over to the US, your wife was pregnant, you're starting this performance psychologist as well during the pandemic. So, I guess how was it for you, you know, becoming a dad during the pandemic, now being in a new country, and also then trying to figure out this performance psychologist?
It was crazy. It was crazy. And now that I've written the book, I was actually writing an article about a letter to my son. And I remember as I was writing all the stuff I did, I was like, I wouldn't advise my son to do what I did. So I had to like put just a note, don't do all these things
Don't
like
do-
that. It wasn't the smartest thing. But
Yes.
I felt like God, if you believe in God or the universe, was kind of pushing me in a certain direction. So I'd already left my job. I was doing this career. And then me and my wife were talking about coming to the US, but it was talk at the time. We were doing like recce's and going and checking. Then all of a sudden she got pregnant. That's why I was like, okay, if you don't make a decision now, you're never going to make a decision. So we made the decision, which seemed absolutely crazy, that you're going to go to another country where both of us don't have a job, and she was 6 months pregnant.
Yeah.
We just had faith that, okay, when we get there, we're going to put all our efforts and we're going to make it work. We didn't know the pandemic was going to come. So my son was born and then the pandemic hit, literally. So we moved June 2019. My son was born October 2019, February 2020, lockdown.
Yeah.
That was a test of faith. But when I look back, I wouldn't have done it any other way, because I feel like there's a bit where you feel like you're in control, but you're not really in control. So you always have to have that faith and just keep showing up and, you know, doing the work. So I'm glad I actually took that chance and came over and had the faith, because even if I'd stayed where I knew everything, if I'd stayed in the same place, the pandemic would have still hit. So I'd have still had to do the same thing. So it kind of just taught me sometimes, is like, as long as you've done your work, there's smart risks that you need to always take to keep pushing in the direction that the universe wants you to go in.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and that is quite a it is quite a risk, isn't it? Moving to a new country, sort of starting a new family, starting a new job. It can be all quite daunting. But I'm glad to sort of hear that Even though you said that you wouldn't tell your son to do it that way, but that you guys were able to. And I'm sure it was quite nice in terms of having that time with your child at home during the pandemic as sort of a newborn that, not many parents get that chance to be at home with their kid that's recently born the whole time. So, COVID, as much as I think everyone sort of was like, oh, I hated COVID, I think everyone made the best of it. And I think there's a lot of nice things that sort of came out of it.
Yeah. No, I love that you said that, because I never like sharing that with everyone, because it's like I didn't wish the pandemic on anyone, and I'm sure there were some horrible things that happened, but definitely for me, getting to spend nearly a year with my son at home with him, because the pandemic was there and I wasn't working at the time. That was like a magical experience that, I would have never got. If I was working, I'll probably be traveling, trying to do my career. And that's why I realized, well, dads get cheated on. Like you have to spend that time with your kids. I don't care what anyone says. It's like magical, that bonding that you do that first year with your child. I got to spend it I've now got two, so I got to spend it with my daughter, but it wasn't as much as with my son. But
Yeah.
it did make me realize how important it was. So that's why I was really made sure I tried to carve out time to take paternity leave to spend with my daughter, because you don't get that first 8 weeks with your child, you never get it back. And it goes, like, before you know it, my daughter's 8 months now, before you know it, the time is flying away. So it's an experience I'll always remember during the pandemic.
Yeah, definitely. I think dads do. I was going to say get shafted a little bit, but I think there's a prevailing thought in terms of that. Oh, I know I've had discussions in my family when I'm like, oh, dad should get, a good amount of time off for paternity leave. There's countries like Sweden where I think dads are able to get a year and it's paid for by the government, or don't
Yeah,
quote me on that, but I know it's much longer
longer than,
what
yeah.
the US or the UK are doing. And I think it's so important because we stress the importance of, mothers having contact with their children and being with their kids. We should definitely, but men also should be there as well, having that
100%.
time, bonding with your child, because, like you said, you're never going to get it back. And you might think of, I don't have children, but you might think of these 8 weeks when they're first born, you're like, they won't even remember it. But
Yeah.
there's something more tangible. Well, there's something more unintangible, not tangible. I don't know where my words are coming. Something we can't quantify,
Intangible.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, intangible. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. It's like the first time when you do become a parent, you see what I'm talking about, where your child sleeps on your chest without, like, skin to skin. And like you hear my wife was talking about it, and I was like, okay, how big of a deal can it be? But the first time you do it, you're like, wow. And then the first time when your child is crying and you have to calm them down, you don't know how you calm them down, but when you do, there's a way that the baby looks at you and you look at the baby, and it's like, that's where I feel like the bond that you can't quite, the intangible bit that you're talking about. I can't quite explain it, but when you go through it, you kind of know that feeling that you get.
yeah. And purely just on a physical, purely on a developmental stage for a child, like it's something that, as we're saying, it's unintangible, but the brain, the connections in the brain that are happening, the synapses that are being built, the feeling of safety and comfort and warm from both of your parents is something that will influence your child for years to come. You know what I mean?
I thoroughly believe that. And I hope that's the reason why my son is still really close with me. Like every time I pick him up, he runs runs to come and hug me. And I feel it's just like that what you just said. There must be something when he was a baby where he associates me with safety and comfort and, yeah, and security.
100%, 100%. And so you've written a book called Real Talk.
Yeah.
For those that can't see, for those that are not watching, there's a little poster behind you.
That's my wife. Just a little plug.
Yeah, there's a little plug. Shameless, shameless. And there's so many books out there on men's mental health, on mental health in general. And I've interviewed people that have written books about men's mental health. And so I want to know sort of what makes Real Talk different from all the other books that are out there.
Okay, I can't speak to all the other books, but I'll speak to like what my intentions were with this book was. So, and it's not just for men. I wanted to just start the conversation on mental fitness.
Mm,
feel like mental fitness is something that people might not even understand, or they don't know what it is. And I felt coming through the pandemic, no one coming through that pandemic will not understand what I mean by taking care of your mental well-being.
Yeah,
So
100%.
as we started to come out, it's like before we went into the pandemic, when I tried to explain to people what mental fitness is or what I do, like no one would understand. Come out of the pandemic, and once I say, "Oh, mental fitness," they're like, "Oh yeah, I know." I like. So I thought like this is an opportunity where I wanted to also get into coaching in the pandemic. I wanted to share the stories with people that the way we take care of our physical fitness, this is what we need to start doing to take care of our mental fitness. Because when you lose it, like it's really hard to try and put back together. And I chose men because, and for me at the time, I was like mid-40s. Two close friends had like mental breakdowns during the pandemic. And I kept thinking, why is it this keeps happening to men? And over here in the US, there was a high-profile DJ on the Ellen DeGeneres show who committed suicide. And then I just kept, it reminded me of something that happened to one of my friends when I was a lot younger. And I just kept feeling like there's a trend here. Why is it that it keeps happening to men? And then I started thinking like, okay, well, what does society place on what it means to be a man? You know, the fact also that men, we can't cry. We also don't show our emotions. Not only do we not show our emotions, we don't even understand our emotions. Like usually with men, it's like you just get really angry or you keep quiet.
Yeah.
There's just those two. So I wanted to write a book where I didn't want to start preaching to people and saying this is what you should do. I just wanted to create stories because I feel like when people read stories, they can see themselves in the different characters. And I wanted to share the stories so that people can see themselves and start to think, okay, how do I show up in my life in this? So I created 4 friends who met after the pandemic, and they're having a drink, they're talking, and then one of the friends had tried to commit suicide. But then as the conversation starts to unfold, it starts to unfold that all of them were struggling during the pandemic. So it was just showing people like, what does real talk look like? You know, how do you measure your mental fitness? And how can you start to do something about it? What would good potentially start to look like? And that's what I was trying to capture through the book in a story format.
Yeah, I like the approach actually, because it is sort of quite different to sort of someone telling you this is what you should do and that's what you should do and this is the best way to do this. But when you have sort of a setting of fictional characters, but also, they're talking about the pandemic, they're talking about something that's just recently happened, which, was stressful for loads of people, and probably, as you said, some people committing suicide or wanted to, or probably had quite a lot of dark thoughts. And so I like sort of taking the setting of the pandemic and just a group of lads talking about their experiences, because it also makes it relatable, as you said, but it also then makes it sort of easy to access and digest, because it's just people talking about what happened, and everyone
Yeah,
probably had those conversations at some point.
yeah, yeah. That's exactly what I was trying to get across. And I wanted it to be easy to digest. So I was like, I had people in mind who I was talking to, and I wanted that I would be able to write something that they would actually pick up and read, and then be able to like, okay, take away something from it.
Nice, nice. So how do you practice mental fitness actually?
Well, that's a good question. So when I was back in the UK, when I was still working in banking, a friend, I was kind of going through a tough period at the time, and she kind of drew this thing on a napkin for me about, okay, this is your emotional energy tank. Like this is the thing that fills your energy tank, and then this is the thing that takes your energy tank. So she was like, you need to make sure that you're filling your energy tank, and you're not the things that are taking it are not draining you.
Mm,
It always stuck with me ever since like many years ago when she shared that with me. So I started to think, okay, well, what are the things that give me joy? What are the things that fill my energy tank? What are the movement activities that I need to do to feel like, okay, my emotional energy is doing well? And then when I stumbled onto performance psychology, I was like, okay, how do I protect that energy? Because you switch on the news and you see all the uncertainty and stress, and that can drain your energy. Before you even start. Don't forget the commitments that you have, going to work, helping the family, doing other projects. So I started to think, I need to start working out how can I put boundaries in place? How can I kind of learn to protect that energy so that I always have emotional energy in there? And for me, it's like making sure your energy tank is not drained and you're not committing to things. And also sometimes being able to monitor, like, because I ask people sometimes, how are you doing? And they'll just go, yeah, I'm okay, I'm okay. It's like, oh, how do you know you're okay? Like, what, how do you tune in to know that where's your emotional energy so that you know how to step away and go and say, okay, I need to put everything down and go and fill up my emotional energy. So that's why it's a constant journey where I use that kind of emotional energy tank to keep checking what am I doing to fill it up, how much is being taken out of it, and where am I in my journey? Because I kind of feel mental fitness is a journey. Like you said, when I did this transition, I went through it, and then all of a sudden now I'm a dad again for the second time, and I realized, I have to start relearning things now. So I'm always trying to. That's why I like to have talks. So I have a podcast as well, where I find talking to people. I always learn things from people, not just. Yeah, that's what I like to like see what others are doing and seeing what can I take and adapt for myself and put into my mental fitness.
Yeah, I like the idea of like that's quite I know I'm not saying it quite often, but that's quite a simple way of being able to understand, okay, what am I putting into my emotionally energy box and what is draining it? You know, it's you can visualize it in your head already as we're talking. And so I think being able to identify, okay, these are things that bring me joy, these are things that sort of can drain my energy. I think for me, if I'm thinking about my energy box, I'll definitely say going for walks, spending time with family, spending time with friends, doing photography. There's quite a few things that sort of are able to fill my energy box.
Mm.
I can't think of things that drain it currently. I mean, work probably always drains anyway, but stressful situations, being stressed for no reason definitely does.
Yeah.
But it's a good way to sort of look at, okay, how am I practicing mental fitness? How am I keeping myself fit? How am I keeping my brain fit? Because at the end of the day, you know, I mean, our body can fail on us, but our brain and our mind is probably the most important part because that runs everything. You know, that keeps everything ticking.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you in that. Yeah, when people do the physical fitness, you spend so much time, but you're right. If the mind is not working and anything happens to the mind, it's like everything else is just goes out the window. So that's why I'm like, I've seen what happens when you have mental breakdown and you try and use the system and the health system, and it's just not set up to support you. So I'm like, if you have your mental fitness, then do everything you can to be proactive in taking care of it and protecting yourself.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. That was quite interesting in terms of just it just sparked up an idea in terms of in my head, when you're talking about the system is not sort of built to support people that are going through mental health issues. Um, how have you found the UK versus the US system? Because you lived in both now. So in terms of dealing with mental health, how have you found
Yeah.
them? Or are they quite similar, more similar than we think?
Um, I haven't experienced the US system as much as the UK yet,
Mm.
but I know with the UK system, like the NHS was really, really overstretched.
Hasn't got any better since you left.
That's sad to hear, but it was yeah, it was very overstretched, and I definitely did not. When it came to like dealing with your mental health, the bits that I was exposed to was it really actually shocked me of how overstretched it was, and it just kind of made me feel like if you lose your mental fitness, you're literally on your own, and you're gonna have to like try and find something to sort it yourself out. I mean, over here in the US, the bits that I have been exposed to was like during the pandemic. I did therapy over here, and over here, I don't know whether this. It might have changed in the UK, but I remember when I was in the UK, you didn't say that you were going to do therapy, and it wasn't talked
Mm,
about a lot. Whereas over here, everyone talks about it. People have two or three therapists actually. They don't just have one. So,
yeah.
but I think it might be changing in the UK because now when I talk to a lot, they're doing therapy or they're doing it using a coach. So that side, it's a lot more out in the open talking about it, but I don't know what the system is like if you have mental health problems. So I can't speak to the US system yet, but I
Yeah.
know when it comes to like therapy and talking about accessing those kind of things, it's a lot more widespread and there are a lot more options.
Yeah, I feel like that's sort of a cultural thing in terms of England versus US in terms of that. I think the Brits are just a bit more conservative about anything that they do, to be honest with you. Like you probably won't find most conversations would bring up difficult emotions or topics are
Yeah,
discussed. But I feel like the US just generally are a bit more, is brazen the word, but just a bit more out there. They're
yeah.
okay with having some of those difficult discussions. Um, I think as well, like something as simple like my podcast is bigger in the US than it is in the UK.
Mm,
But I think that's probably more of the fact that probably there are more black people in the US definitely, but I think the
yeah,
US are more open and used to having conversations of race and
yeah,
class and
sure.
the injustices within the systems. So it's quite an interesting sort of comparison to view.
Mm. Yeah, that's one thing I noticed, like talking about race, whole different ball game
Mm.
over here than in the UK. So I'm not surprised that your podcast is a lot more popular here. Because over here it's more in your face, the race thing. You don't try and like sweep it up the carpet or make it sound. It's like it's in your face, whether you like it or not. So you have to talk about it.
Yeah, definitely. I sort of I think I've had conversations with people before and I was like, I'd probably prefer more actually I wouldn't prefer racism altogether, but I'd rather know where the enemy is than where it isn't. You know what I mean? Like at least with Trump, we saw him, he's out there, he's saying random stuff. But here it's sort of the systems and then there's not a face to it always. So it's hard to
Yeah.
know where you're battling or who you're battling.
I call it death by 1,000 paper cuts. So in the UK, you don't even you're right. The racism is in the systems because it's not in the people. Like all my friends were from all different races, so you can't even see it. But for me, it wasn't until I got to my 40s then I started to realize, oh my God, it's in everywhere I work. It's
Mm.
everywhere. But it's so behind the scenes that you don't even know it's happening. But you come here to the US, George Floyd thing happened. That thing shocked me to my core. And so
You
here
were
it's like,
there, weren't you, for that?
yeah, I was there. Just become a dad.
Wow.
Shocked me to my core. I've never seen anything like that before in my life. So it's here. It's like you can't pretend. Like it's right in front of your face. You got to deal with it.
What was that like being a dad? Just being just being a dad. You just had a boy, and you see
Mm.
George Floyd on the TV in this new country you've moved to. You probably look to your wife like, "Are we sure we don't want to move back?"
That's exactly what I said to my wife. I was like, are you sure we didn't make a mistake? Because at first we were thinking Trump, and we're like, okay, we can deal with Trump. But then when that happened, I was like, what the? No, I was maybe because it was becoming a dad, it really affected me. So maybe for like 2 weeks, I was probably depressed. I was just like, how could? Because what really shocked me was it happened in broad daylight,
Mm,
and I thought when I looked at George Floyd, I was like, that's the exact reaction I would have done. I'd have tried to comply, and then you get choked out in broad daylight. So, and then what really upset me was at the time we were walking around my son, and he looks really, really cute. So people would always want to come and even in the middle of COVID was just happening at the time. So I'll never forget one lady was like, the cuteness was too much. She kept wanting to come and pet it, like not pet it, sorry, coming to come and like, and the husband's having to like pull her away, like what's wrong? Because she was an older lady.
mm.
It just shocked me that all the same people now who think my son is so cute, when he goes up into an adult, those are the same people that are, going to probably call the police when they see him running around somewhere. So it was a shocking experience.
Yeah, definitely shocking. Yeah, I think even obviously here watching it from the UK, I think it was the fact that like obviously we've seen killings of black people, but like it was so, as you said, in the open, on video, like if you wanted to, you could watch the whole 11 minutes, which I didn't. But
Yeah,
like yeah, I can't even comprehend it because it was just so brazen. And it was like, damn, like they weren't even worried that the cameras were on them.
I know.
Like
I
they
know.
weren't even worried.
I know. That's the shocking thing about it. It's like they really just didn't care that it was brought out in the open. And I don't know whether this is true, but I just one thing I said to my wife is like, I cannot imagine that would have happened in the UK. Like I cannot imagine that anyone who was standing around wouldn't have gone up and gone like to the police, what the hell are you doing? Like Whereas somehow I felt like in the US, no one did anything. Like
Mm.
no one. I don't know whether I'm being naive, but I can't imagine that in the UK, if people walking down the street and they saw the police doing that, they would just carry on walking.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's I don't know whether it's sort of the psyche of living in a gun culture where it's like, yeah, I
Yeah,
could intervene, but then he's just gonna pull up a pistol on me. So, like, at least
probably
in
true
England,
actually.
okay, you could taser me, you could hit me with a baton,
Yeah,
and it probably because I've seen videos of like police here like standing on children and stuff like that, and then you see like some people coming in and like pushing a police officer. I
yeah.
don't think I'd ever be so brazen to um pull a police officer for someone, mainly just because I'm also a social worker, so that probably wouldn't go down too well. But yeah, it must be. I say must be, but I guess one possible explanation is like, yeah, the police could literally pull a pistol up on me, and
Mm.
I would have to back up.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I just thought about it. Like over here, the gun culture is like you're not going to go up to police to just start pushing them around because they have a gun.
Mm.
And if it's the situation's already het up already, chances are they're going to pull it on you.
Yeah,
But in the
exactly.
UK, tase and a baton, you might take your chances and
Yeah,
just push them. Yeah.
definitely. And so we're discussing sort of quite a lot of emotionally charged topics, but also topics which can definitely lean on your mental health. And so I guess for you and for your family, like how are you guys practicing mental fitness? Like how are you going to, I guess, teach your son and teach your daughter about that?
That's a great question. I mean, it's something I always talk with my wife, and I feel like our our kids. So if our kids are happy, that's a big part of our mental
Mhm.
fitness. So spending family time as much as we can, as much as always carving, even if we're tired from work or anything, making sure that we plan first. What are we going to do as a family? That one I have to give credit to my wife as well. She's very on top of that. We have to like do things as a family. And then I feel like by spending that time with our family, that's hopefully we're showing our kids that this is, we're carving out time to show you what gives you joy and showing you what's important, first of all, before you start worrying about work or grades at school or things like that. So I feel if we show them what's important and we show them what gives them joy and show them that if you create like a good home and safety, that's the foundation of mental fitness. And the other thing is emotions. Like a big part is getting them to know how to understand their emotions, how to talk about it. Like my son now is at a stage where if he doesn't get something, he's always crying and then he gets really
Mm.
upset. So I'm having to teach him like how to take 3 breaths and okay, tell me why you're upset. So I'm really trying to focus in this early period to teach him how to understand his emotions and how to express it. So I feel that's a big part with your mental fitness. If you're not able to understand what you're feeling and you're not able to express it, and that's going to be that's going to be tough. And then the expressing it is teaching them how to talk to different people. Always get what's on your mind, get it out. Because I always find like if you just have conversations with yourself in your head, that's not a good place to be in. So learning like who do you trust around you, and then when you find those people you trust, talking to them and sharing with them.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm envious of kids now. That actually, no, that's a lie. S Semi envious because I wouldn't have wanted to grow up in the world of TikTok and Instagram. Um, but I will say that in terms of having parents like you, and even I guess for parents that are trying to improve their emotional intelligence, trying to make sure that they're able to pass on the right skills and tools to their children, the fact that when they do grow up and they're 18, 17, or even older than that, then they already have these schools, they already have these skills in their tool belts. Like they can already, okay, this is how I'm feeling, why am I feeling this, how do I deal with it, or is it my situation that's making me feel like this, how do I remove myself? But there's already sort of that education in terms of, okay, I know what I need to do and when I need to do it.
Yeah, yeah. No, I do think that's a big thing where having those skills, those tools and skills in your toolkit before when you get older, because I feel when you get older, if you don't have that in there, that's when you start having problems because you don't know how to to navigate relationships. You don't know how to understand what it is that you're feeling. It's a big one. I never thought about what you just said, TikTok and Instagram, because social media is going to be a tough one. And that's one I can't even get my head around, where it's just, the other day I was talking to someone who's about to go to university, and then they were talking about dating and how, you know, everything is through an app. Like literally you don't go and meet anyone now. Even if you go out, you're communicating through an app with the person when you go out. And it's like, my brain is finding it hard to I'll understand that.
Yeah, it's a strange world that we currently live in. Yeah, because I was about to say, I think definitely my last few relationships has been someone I've met on an app. And I think young people now probably couldn't even see another way of doing it. Like,
they just think that's normal now.
Yeah.
Now, the one that got me was when you go out to a club, you go out to a club and you're still communicating with people through the app. Like if you're in the same club with the person, okay, yeah, and then you go and meet. And I'm like, why wouldn't you just go and talk
straight away? Yeah, that one's a bit brazy. If I'm talking to someone and we're in the same room, I'm gonna all I'm gonna say is I'm here. Where are you? And then I'll find you, and then we can chat. Because you know what, I always think, even though it is helpful having the apps, I do think that it is better to just be able to, you know, talk to someone, be able to sit across from someone. Like I feel like I can vibe better with somebody when I'm in person than I can on text. Like you can see my qualities better if we're engaging over person. But listen, I use the apps, so I'm not a hater against them because they've helped me out. But yeah, person to person, nothing replaces that really.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to start hating as well on apps. Sure, I'm sure that they do open up the world. It's just don't lose that human skill as well. Like I love what you just said. It's like talking to somebody over an app, but when you actually talk to the person and you've seen them, there's so much other different things that you're picking up that I hope people don't forget about that as they start to get older. The other thing that I really feel worried for my kids is when they go to school. Like you do a lot of dumb, stupid things, especially when you're at university. And the fact that that gets caught and then put on Insta, I'm like, that's just not fair. It should not be. You should have like some time to be stupid and, you know, and find out about yourself before it gets put on social media for all of eternity.
Before you make an apology video of like, I'm sorry for my past behaviors. Oh, imagine, honestly, the stupid stuff that I must have gotten up to as a kid. If that was recorded, damn, they wouldn't let me be a podcast host.
You'd be doing apology videos for I apologize for everything from day,
Definitely. And so I wanted to get back just a little bit in terms of about your book and maybe what your intentions are for people that read it. Like what do you want people to come out of it once they've read it?
That's a great question, actually. The first one is I want them to start having real conversations. So and it's not just for guys, which is strange enough, most people who've been buying my book are women, not men.
Yeah.
And women, to start having that real conversation. And I feel like we started to do that during the pandemic, and I want us to keep it going. I want you now to then think, oh, okay, I now understand what mental fitness is. I want you to put mental fitness higher than physical fitness, because I love what you just said, without your mind, the rest doesn't work. So I want you to, like, after the book, try to start becoming a student of mental fitness. Like, what does it mean for you? Having other people you talk to, have an assessment, take the assessment. You know, if you want to book a call with me, I'm happy to talk to you about it. But I would love to get to a point where there's a mental fitness revolution. Like I feel like in the UK, my mom lives in Balham. So I used to be in Balham, and there's a park near where she lives where I used to go for a run 10 years, 15 years ago. Nobody used to go for a run on that park. But you go there now and like, you can't find a blade of grass to do exercise. Like everyone's doing, you know, circuit training, yoga, PT, everything. So I was like, well, if that can happen for physical fitness, I want that to happen for mental fitness.
Yeah.
So that's a key take. Those are the two key takeaways, like more real conversation. So when you're there with your friends, like really being vulnerable and sharing other stuff that's going on. And I think when you start being vulnerable, you give permission to your friends to be vulnerable. And then I find when you're in a trusting group, when people share, it's magic what can happen and what you can actually get out of it. And then the other one is just prioritizing your mental fitness.
Yeah. And I guess for people listening, would you have sort of any three? I know there's never enough tips, or you can never distill everything into three tips to do this, but are there any sort of things that you want people to hear in terms of how they can start the journey of their mental fitness, or even just how to to keep mentally fit?
So I'm going to start. The first one that just popped into my head is the conversation that you have with yourself is the most important one. So starting to like work out how do you talk to yourself. So maybe keeping a journal so that you actually see what goes on in your stream of consciousness, and just starting to be kinder the way you talk to yourself. Because a lot of the work I do as a coach, I find that people, we're not kind to ourselves. And if that self-talk is not good, like I kind of call it carrot versus the stick. A lot of people are like, you're not good enough, you need to push yourself. They use the stick to talk themselves, which for me is not a good way of motivating yourself. So I feel changing that conversation with the way you talk to yourself. And when you do that, then when you show up in a group and start to have real talk, you can do it from a better position in that. The other one is really just trying to define what mental fitness means for you. So even if you don't do my assessment, just if you read the book, just start to think, okay, what does mental fitness mean for me? And where for me, I always feel mental fitness is a journey, because you'll never crack it. Even coming through the transitions I told you, becoming a dad for the first time. Now I'm a dad for the second time. I'm on a new journey, so now I have to new skills, as almost like start again. So trying to work out where you are in the journey and what does it mean for you. And then the third one is having I call it trusted connections or trusted advisors. So that was the thing that got me through that period, was really learning like who are the people I can really lean on, especially when you're really tough times. The people that are going to show up and tell you what you don't want to hear sometimes, but what you need to hear. And the people that will always give you advice that lifts you up. Even if you're feeling really down and crap, it lifts you up in the longer term. So always invest in those people, no matter what. And then there's also people who I call trusted advisors now. So like now I'm a high performance coach. I think when I was in the UK, I found like I leaned too much on my friends, and it's good to have friends, but sometimes they're people who like therapists or coaches who I call trusted advisors. Those people, you pay them because that's what they do. That's what they do as a living. That's what they invest all their time. So sometimes you need those people to talk to if you want to actually get some decent answers to some of the challenges you're having. So have that trusted connections and trusted advisors around you if you want to stay mentally fit.
Yeah, I think those are all sort of very good tips. Thank you. Thank you. I know I put you on the spot to come up with three.
It was a
Um
great question. Thank you. That's good.
but yeah, I think even just as you were saying in terms of I think yeah, we can sometimes rely on our friends too much, or sometimes people don't rely on their friends enough because they're gonna feel like they're a burden. But
Yeah.
even if you're then having those feelings of, oh, I'm going to be a burden on my friends, I guess that's where trusted advisors come from, because these people are paid to listen to you. They're not going to take your burden, but they're going to definitely help you think through it.
Mm.
And even sort of when you were saying about the carrot and the stick and using positive words and understanding your own self-talk, I think is really important. Like I've got this journal called Mind Journal, and I'm gonna make a video on it soon. But very good journal, and it sort of helps you through the journaling process, because that can definitely be sort of a daunting thing to start.
Yeah.
So anyone listening, I'll put that into the show notes. I'll put it onto so many show notes, so people should start looking and buying. But they ain't paying me for it yet, so maybe when I have an affiliate link one time, and they'll,
Shameless plug, but I love it. I'm gonna
yeah,
actually this mind journal.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, man journal, yeah. Um, but no, I really like in terms of everything that we've talked about and everything that we've said. I wanted just to ask you a final question, which I ask all my guests. And I think this will probably be quite personal for you because you've just had a black boy in the US. And so if there is Oh my gosh, I forgot my own final question. Um, say if there's a young black boy listening to this conversation, or even say if it's your son listening to this conversation, what advice can you give him that can help him with an understanding of themselves?
That's a great question. The advice I'd say is to not let what society tells you should be rule your life. And I would want you to work on finding out what it is that makes you happy and what the universe wants you to do. And then I'd make sure you protect your mental fitness, because you're not going to be able to do those two things without your mental fitness. But yeah, for any black boy listening, not just my son, it's like, I think society has already kind of set up a story or a narrative of what we are, or what we should be. And I really ask them to kind of find ways to just put that all to one side and go and actually find out what makes you happy, what you want to do, what the universe wants you to do, and follow that. And don't ever let what society does draw you away from any of those things.
Chinazom, thank you very much for coming onto the Black and Raw podcast. I've loved this conversation, and I'm glad we got to connect. Hopefully we can do it again at some point as well.
Yeah, I would love to do this again, Tina. I had so much fun. It was such an enjoyable conversation. I'm going to have to listen to, because I felt like you asked me questions I hadn't thought about, and I learned something new in this one. So really enjoyed it.
No, that's good. To be honest with you, I like asking questions that people haven't thought about. That I'm gonna toot my own horn means of a good host, but
I agree. I think that's a good, because I come on this podcast and I'm learning something new, and I'm like, I never thought about that. So you're definitely a good host.
So no, thank you very much. So yeah, I hope you have a good day. And yeah, well, where are you based in the States?
I'm in Maryland. Not too far from DC and not too far from Baltimore. I'm just in between those places.
So it's like the afternoon, morning for you, probably like
it's 2:55. So
okay. That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day as well.
Okay, man. Thank you, Tina.
Thank you very much for listening to the end of this episode, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, please tell me what you think about it in the comments in the comment section. I really enjoyed talking to Chinazom. I really enjoyed talking to him. I think he was amazing to have as a guest on the podcast, and I really thank you for coming on as well. So yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you, Chinazom. And yeah, I don't think I have much more else to say, guys, other than aloha, mahalo from Hawaii. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. There'll be an episode out next week.